welcome to the Fearless Debate Blunt Talk on your channel of choice, MUVI Television. My name is Kelvin Dabola Chifokolu. Now on Friday, the 25th of September 2020, Finance Minister Dr. Bwaliangando announced to the nation the 119 billion kwacha 2021 budget, whose theme is to stimulate economic recovery and build resilience to safeguard livelihoods and protect the vulnerable, in which the minister made some changes and some proposals. And tonight on Blunt Talk, we focus on education, social cash transfer, empowerment, as well as debt restructuring. And now we take a short break, and on the other side, I get to introduce my guest on the program. We won't take a break, but joining me, or the people that are going to debate, I have Mputa Ngalande, who is activist at Global Platform. Mputa, good evening and welcome to Blunt Talk.
Good evening to the viewers and good evening, moderator. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. We also have Stephen Kanyakula, who is Zambia National Students Union ZANASU acting president. Steve, good evening and welcome to Blunt Talk.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good evening to all the viewers across the country and those watching us from across the borders.
The rules of the game, gentlemen, is that you'll be given 3 minutes to respond to a question that I'm going to pose to you. When your 3 minutes is up, then I'll ask you to stop, and I'll ask your colleague to also respond to a question. In case your colleague has said or has mentioned something and you want to respond, you wait for your 3 minutes, and you can respond or clarify within the 3 minutes that I'll give to you. Steve Kanyakula, how do you prefer I refer to you tonight? Should I call you Steve Kanyakula, Steve, or just Kanyakula?
Just call me Kanyakula.
Thank you so much. Same to you, Mputa. Should I call you Mputa Ngalande, Mputa, or just Ngalande?
Mputa.
Mputa. Thank you so much. Now, gentlemen, first of all, let me start with you, Steve. Your first reaction to the proposed 2021 national budget, and your 3 minutes starts now.
Okay, thank you so much. I think from education point of view, when it comes to the budget, in as much as we understand it, it hasn't yet reached the threshold as agreed by African leaders on a declaration to make sure that at whatever point the national budget, 20% of it should be allocated to education. We also want to believe that I think with the current predicament that our country finds itself in, it's imperative that we keep moving, and that the education sector keeps moving, and that our students across the country are able to benefit from all these amenities that come with them being in education. So in opening, I would say that the 13 billion that has been proposed to education, in as much as it's not enough, but it's a very welcome move, and it's at least it's a step in the right direction, especially when you see how it's been broken down in terms of early childhood education, secondary and primary education, tertiary education, all those breakdown. Because what you need to put into perspective is that our country right now has a lot of debt that it needs to service, and with a small amount of money that has been allocated to make sure that the country runs and the economy continues to run, it's imperative that we appreciate the little that has been allocated to education, and it should be used prudently and wisely, and you shouldn't see misappropriation or misapplication of the money that has been allocated to education. Overall, the budget was okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much, Steve Kanyakula. The budget was okay. That is according to you. Mputa, your first reaction to the 2021 national budget. Your 3 minutes starts now.
For my reactions are that I was disappointed, because I felt the ministry would come with something very powerful to sell to this country in terms of allocating the budget next year. But alas, what was presented was not what some of us expected from the budget. Like he said, in the education sector, the threshold for funding for it to be prudent to manage education in this country is 20%. From 2015, only in 2015, that's when we saw them, the budget, they allocated 20%. This time we should be talking about allocating 30% or 25% or above 20%. That would be prudent enough. But now we are seeing them, they keep going down. And in that sense, how can you give the same allocation of funds to primary school, same amount compared to tertiary education? And we have seen in some institutions of higher learning that teachers are boycotting classes, are not being paid. So for me, I was disappointed, and I'm still disappointed with the budget that was presented in that regard. Thank you.
Kanyagula, let's start with the education sector.
Yes.
The minister proposed a 13.8 billion, of which 7.1 will go towards early childhood and primary education, 2.7 will go towards secondary education, and 1.9 will go towards tertiary education. As the acting president of the students in Zambia, is 1.9 billion enough so that for tertiary education, so that we don't experience the issue of lecturers boycotting classes and students protesting because they haven't been put on the bursary as well as meal allowances?
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I think let me pick it up from the allocation as broken down from the 13.8 billion that has been allocated to education in general. I think when it comes to early childhood education, with 7.1 billion that has been allocated, I think you would agree with me that there is, especially when you go into the rural setup of this country, and even the peri-urbans of this country, have a lot of our young brothers and our young sisters who've turned into, they've involved themselves into a lot of illicit behavior. Let's say early marriages, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and all that. I think this is as a result of not really having a lot of places to incorporate them into the education system when it comes to early childhood education, unless for a few of our colleagues who are privileged, who are able to send their kids to expensive and are able to manage to send their kids to primary and early childhood education, which is not the case when you go to the likes of Manyama, Kapijimpanga, and Mujimanzov, and these other areas in our country. So when it comes to the allocation that has been broken down, I think this needs to be utilized, and it should be, our people need to take advantage of this and make sure that they take the children into schools, because there's this amount of money that has been allocated, which is a lot and enough to make sure that it's sustained. When it comes to 2.7 billion that has been allocated to secondary and primary school, I think even this is also a welcome move in cushioning to the challenges that arise in the education sector. You and I would agree and know that most secondary and primary schools, the user fees has been cut off, and in some extent there's just a minimum amount that is being paid to these schools. And if there is less money that is being generated from the schools, it means the schools will fail to run. So it's just imperative and important that they consider allocating this amount of money to primary and secondary schools. When it comes to the 1.9 billion that has been allocated to tertiary education, let me not say that I'm satisfied or I'm happy with the 1.9 billion that has been allocated to tertiary education. But I think, let me say this should be an eye-opener to managers of institution of higher learning, that in this institution of higher learning, where we're teaching, where we're being taught to be innovative and to be entrepreneurs and to learn to generate income and learn to generate resources, I think it should start with our institution of higher learning to find modes and modalities on how they can make sure that they generate income, because this institution of higher learning, some of them have big lands and all those other amenities.
Your 3 minutes is up, Kanyakula. Thank you so much. Mputa, Kanyakula in his submission talked about there's 7.1 billion towards early education and primary education, and his focus has been that schools that are in rural parts of this country, things are not well. And if we look at 7.1, it means it's going to cushion, or it's going to make a difference. Your take on that one?
With regards to funding in terms of primary school, I do not agree with the funding that has been allocated to primary school compared to secondary school. Why? Because if you look at there are researches that are done, and these researches inform us on what decision we should make in terms of mostly with funding. If we look at the rate of dropout in schools right now, you find that, or even completion of schools, you find that in secondary school, this is where we find a lot of young people are dropping out of school compared to the primary school. So us funding or giving more to a sector that is doing well is not, I don't know what method was used for them to allocate such kind of money to primary school and allocate such kind of money to secondary school. So for me, I feel let's look at these sectors in a different manner. This sector is experiencing a lot of dropouts, which means we need more money. We need more the budget to be allocated in that sense, so that those dropouts, those young people that are dropping out, are not dropping out because we need a lot of young people for them to finish school. If you look at in secondary schools, a lot of young people are covering large distances of secondary school because they are few. You find certain young people are forced, mostly girls, are forced to rent houses, and they are being used now by those selfish individuals that are older than them, for them to say, okay, we'll be paying you for rent and sleeping with them, which should not be the case. The government, in terms of budgeting, they should caution that those situations, those young people are not put in that situation of them leaving their parents' house and renting near a school. The government should cushion that. If we look at the number of primary school, I feel the number of primary school for now, there are a lot. And primary school, secondary school are the ones that are not a lot, and the money should be at the budget I expected. In my opinion, I expected the secondary school budgeting to be more higher than the primary school budgeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and you still had 37 seconds. Now, Kanyakula, you are not comfortable with the money allocated to tertiary education, but according to you, it is an eye-opener.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about the theme itself. It talks about stimulate economic recovery and build resilience to safeguard livelihoods and protect the vulnerable. In a nutshell, is the theme resonating with what the minister has proposed towards tertiary as well as secondary education?
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I think I'll concentrate on one part of the theme. I might not quote it in its entirety, but let me concentrate on one part that says protecting the most vulnerable. Who are the most vulnerable in our country right now? It's the women and the youths. I think even my colleague would agree with me that at the moment, these are the most vulnerable group in our society. And if you look at the budget for 2021, the allocation that has been, there are some issues and some money that have been allocated to youth empowerment and also women empowerment. And those the vulnerable in our societies, and also mostly in rural areas. So I think on that aspect, I think it resonates with the current situation, and protecting the vulnerable means we need to find ways and modalities and making sure that we caution that vulnerability that exists amongst these vulnerable individuals in society. And that's why you've seen that there's empowerment that's been allocated to the youth. It's just unfortunate that I don't have the actual figures, but there is some, let me just look, find where it is. Yes, thank you. There's 266.3 million that has been allocated towards the women and youth empowerment, as well as small and medium enterprises. I think that's a direction, that's a step in the right direction, and I'll urge my colleagues out there to take advantage of this platform and these resources that have been given to the youths and the women who are the most vulnerable in our society. And I'll also urge our students to make sure that they tap into this opportunity that has been presented in the 2021 budget, because this is the only way we are going to mitigate and also try to reduce the vulnerability in terms of resources and also the livelihood and upkeep of our colleagues. I think the only part that is missing in this aspect is the issue of sensitization. How will our colleagues sensitize? Because it's not everyone who managed to listen to the minister in parliament giving the budget speech, but only maybe a few privileged of us who are able to access television, all those things, have an opportunity to listen to him and know about all these figures. So I even urge my colleague who's also part of Activista to take up this mantle to say, okay guys, this is what has been offered to us. How are we going to make sure that the youths and the women, these are the people who are most vulnerable, also benefit from these resources that have been allocated? And I think as a union, we'll make sure that we take it up to make sure that our students are able to access these resources that have been given to them to utilize in the 2021 budget. So in answering your question, does it resonate with the theme? I think in that aspect, looking at the most vulnerable, I think it does resonate.
Mputa, protecting the vulnerable. You've talked about early childhood as well as primary schools, and you've said there are a lot of dropouts. Is the money or the amount enough to cater for early childhood so that we reduce the number of dropouts? And also bearing in mind that in rural parts or in villages, schools are in deplorable states, and as a result, we've been told by teachers, even teacher unions, that because of the deplorable states, lack of enough learning space, children don't have the morale. They're not encouraged to be attending classes day in, day out. Is this money, or is the theme indeed resonating with helping the vulnerable in society when it comes to early childhood and primary education?
It has been said a couple of times, saying education is an equalizer. And how do we equalize so that the vulnerable and the elite reach the same level? Education can do that. And as a government, they should take that into keen interest. But looking at, like I said, for us to say education will be run in a more prudent manner, the government needed to fund 20% or above. Now, if the government, anything below 20, I'm not happy with it. Because as at now, we have about 50,000 teachers that are not employed. And those people went into school. And if you look at the teacher to pupil ratio, it is not one thing that we can be happy with. Now, if the government really wanted quality education and make sure that we protect the vulnerable, we should have seen them funding more to education in that direction. But if someone says, if there's a problem and someone does not seem to be paying particular attention and they are forsaking, I think the Ministry of Finance has forsaken education for quite some time now, from 2015 until now. This sector has been forsaken. And I don't know where this country is going if we are not going to prioritize education in this country in terms of funding. Because if we do not have an educated citizenry, then it will be very difficult for us to move forward or even to develop this country. In terms of funding for higher learning, if the amount is not increasing, then which means we cannot even get more people on bursaries. See? Because there is no money to fund them, to fund those student loans. Now, how are we protecting the vulnerable that need to be in school and they depend on the government to pay for them so that they can access higher education? It is difficult. So I don't think with the funding, yes, the theme is eye-catching and very interesting, but what resonates with the funding and how certain funds have been allocated does not speak to what the theme says. Thank you.
let's go to the issue of empowerment. Kanyakula, you've mentioned that you're happy because of the theme, the line that you've picked of protecting the vulnerable, and you've talked about the women and youths being vulnerable. Government has proposed to support women, youth, small to medium enterprises, and the minister proposed 266.3 million kwacha to various empowerment programs. Out of this amount, 155.2 million kwacha will be allocated specifically to the youths. We have seen a number of empowerments going on. The president has launched a number of empowerments. Why such an amount still going to youths and women when there are other forms of empowerment?
Well, Mr. Moderator, not really knowing what you mean when you say other forms of empowerment, but all in all,
we know that there is 30 million to the artists who are youths.
Okay. I think then I get you. I think if you look at it from that angle, I think that the 30 million that you're talking about has been an undergoing process. I think I don't know if they've been empowered yet or they haven't, but it's a money that is there to cushion between for 2020, maybe going into 2021. But this is something that is documented in the budget, and it's something that we can always go back and say, there's this money that was allocated to this. Where is it? Was it used prudently? And if it wasn't, where has it gone? Has it been misapplicated, or has it been misappropriated? Then it will be easier for us to track it. So I think in answering your question, I think I tackled part of it in the earlier question. But maybe before I respond to it, maybe if I'm allowed to respond to some of the issues that my colleague has...
Within your 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. I think when you talk about my colleague saying there are a lot of issues that have come up, dropout in school, the levels of people dropping out, and about, I think he mentioned, I don't know if it's 250,000 teachers who are unemployed.
Yes.
I don't know about the statistics, but one thing I know for sure is that I think if we're talking about there's a high number of dropouts at secondary and primary level, I think it's just right that the allocation had to be increased so that maybe the infrastructure that is missing from a distance, so that maybe it can cushion our brothers and sisters who walk maybe 10 to 20 kilometers to reach the nearest secondary school. But if we can utilize the 7.1 billion that has been allocated to make sure that we create schools, even just community schools, where one has to walk maybe just 1 or 2 kilometers to access education, it means we're going to reduce the number of people dropping out, and also the issue of our female sisters being boarding in these areas, and they are being abused by the people who are mischievous. So I think when that is realized, it means there won't be need of them doing that or just be coming from home. They go to school back home. And also when it comes to the teacher ratio, pupil, I think it has reduced. We need to give credit where it's due. I think the time some of us, maybe him and myself, when I'm going to school, he would agree that maybe in a class of 1 or up to maybe 80 to 90. But now with the current statistics that are there, the numbers are there, you find that in most classes the ratio is 1 to 40, at most maybe 50, which is convenient, and the numbers, it means they're reducing. And then also I'm aware that the government is planning on recruiting about 15,000 teachers. I think this is where this money comes in, to make sure that when these teachers are employed, they're not going to lack in terms of salary and all those other things. So I think that's where this whole amount comes in. Answering the question of the 152 million, it being enough, it's a welcome move. I think it's a very commendable move, and it's a welcome move. The only way we're going to realize the Zambian dream or the African dream is if ourselves are empowered. And how do we get empowered? When we don't have the collateral to go to the banks and get these
Thank you so much, Kanyakula, and your 3 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Mputa, we've been told by the Patriotic Front that they are a pro-poor party presiding over a pro-poor government. And now youths and women are the vulnerable. Others have described the allocation or the money that has been set aside as empowerment for women and youths as a political gimmick. Is this an answer to more money in people's pockets?
This is an answer to more money in politically connected people. We have had empowerment schemes or funds that have come before this one. Have you seen a report that says such youth borrowed money and they paid back, and this is what they have done, and now the money they have paid back, we have given another youth that is doing that, this and this? I have not seen. If anyone has seen it, I would like to read that report. Now, what criteria is used to choose people that will be beneficiaries from this empowerment? You know the story.
No, I don't know.
You don't know the story?
No, I don't know the story.
These are people that are politically connected that access these funds. It is on record. And now, I feel these are just pronouncements, political rhetoric, trying to win young people, the young people vote, the women vote. Now, if this money has been allocated, I would love in 2021 and beyond to see young people that will benefit from this money, not from them being politically connected or belonging to a certain political party. And this is the most important thing that will make them, because even if they give someone from a certain political party and that person does not use those funds well, then it is them that will be blamed. But if we give someone who is not even aligned to any political party and they progress, then the glory goes to them, because there is a youth that has done certain things with the use of that money. So, to the people, I don't know what criteria and who is in charge of choosing beneficiaries and making sure that certain people benefit. But I feel the system needs to be changed. We need to bring independent people that are not attached to any ministry, maybe to sit and look at those proposals that those young people will send there, and those people will be chosen in those bases. That is the only way that this youth empowerment is going to yield results. Yes, we can say we have money and we'll put that money to young people, but if it does not bring any results, then there's nowhere, there's no achievement that we are doing, and that is not okay, because we are spending money here, and this money needs to be accounted for. It is not fair that every time we read the auditor's report, the money that was supposed to benefit the vulnerable, they say vulnerable, so that they can produce they can progress, or the small scale enterprises, so that they can grow and employ a lot of young people. That money is appropriated or misappropriated. It is not fair. So I would love to urge every young person there to go and try applying for the money.
Before I go to Kanyakula, still with you, Mputa. Kanyakula is very much happy, and in his earlier submission he said it's up now to him as a union leader to encourage students to go for this money. And he also said, and it's also up to my brother to do his part. Don't you think you are failing the young people? Don't you think you are failing the women who are the vulnerable? With what you've just said, to say this money is meant to please people who are politically connected. Is it not your duty to tell the young people out there, to tell the women, to say government has set aside this amount of money and it's up to you to stand up and apply so that you access these funds? Don't you think you're giving a disservice to young people as well as women?
Mr. Moderator, thank you. Do you remember the COVID relief fund, the 1.6 that went viral?
Yes. When
I heard of that fund saying no, there is a COVID relief, I organized young people saying, let's go, you access, young people from my community saying, let's go, you access these funds. When we reached there, we find certain cadres that said, where are these people from? The only people, these faces, I've never seen them. We want faces that we know. Now, if we're going to say that those funds, I failed the young people, I knew of that opportunity and organized young people to say, let's go, you also access these funds, and then you go there, they're intimidated. they are threatened to be beaten because their faces are not familiar, and that money is for people that are familiar. You are not found here, and you are not found here. But those people, those young people come from that particular society. So then, if they're intimidated with that little amount of money when they go to access and they are intimidated, now, how is it going to be next time I organize young people? Let's go, you go and access the empowerment fund, and then some of them, mind you, I have friends that applied for that fund, and we saw certain people that are politically connected accessing those funds, and because some of us are not aligned to any political party, we are left. So I don't think I have failed in that sense of informing my fellow young people. At least I have taken even a step to go and get them and say, let's go, I'll speak for you. But if someone comes with punches, I can't, in that scenario, then there's nothing I can do but just shield myself so that I don't get beaten. You know how violent certain people can be, most fair cadres out there.
Kanyakura, you are excited and you are saying you are going to, you take it upon yourself and inform or sensitize students and young people to go for this allocation or this money. Mputa is scared and is saying he has tried before. Only those that are politically connected are the ones that are going to benefit from this amount. Are you also politically connected? And are you going to organize people or young people that are politically connected so that they access this empowerment fund?
Thank you so much, Comrade Moderator. It's unfortunate that my colleague was almost beaten up by cadres. I don't know from which political party. To answer your question, no, I'm not politically connected. I believe in what the system requires of one to do. I'm very much willing to help my brother in terms of not really accessing, but on the modalities on how to go about accessing funds. It's not just about going and saying, no, today we're going to get money. I think even if I came today and say, nah, today I've come for an interview at MUVI TV without being given an appointment, I think it will look a bit cumbersome. I'm sure you agree with me. I think it's also important that we learn to follow procedure and the protocol as it may be. I think I do not speak for any political party, and I might not really know the house and what it means when you say familiar faces. But what I know for sure is that I think the criteria has been laid up properly on how to access these funds. It says if you go to National Youth Development Council, they say form a cooperative of not less than 20 youths from your community. You form a cooperative, you get the certificate, the cooperative certificate, all the necessary documentation that is needed. Once you have those, submit, attach your business proposal or whatever it is, initiative that you have, put that in writing, propose, and then submit them. And then there are people who sit, review those proposals. So just going and saying, no, we've come to access 152 million that has been allocated to the youth, it's not going to work, because then you won't know how you're going to be accountable, because the money is not even supposed to be given to you in your hands, supposed to be sent to you to the cooperative account with a proper and viable business plan. I think this is what our colleagues from all these organizations should be putting their energy in, encouraging the youth. It shouldn't always be that we should be going to lift placards or do whatever it is that we do when when we are aggrieved. But I think it's also important that on our free time we sit our youths in our communities where we come from, say, okay guys, this is how you come up with a business plan. This is how you go about to come up with what, if it's a barbershop plan, if it's poultry farming, if it's fishery, and all these other small businesses that the youths can venture into. This is what we need. These are discussions and conversations that we need to be having around as the young people of this country, because if we're going to sit all the time on Facebook discussing politics, discussing things that don't really matter, it's not going to benefit us directly, then we're losing it. So I think what I would urge my brother, I'm very much willing, and the team from Zanaso are very much willing. We can come on board. Just invite us at Activista where you're found. We'll tell you, okay, as a youth, this is the modality that you need to go about doing this. We've been pushing for this, even as a union, we've been pushing to make sure that, how are we going to make sure that our colleagues, our friends who are in institution of higher learning, some, for instance, your parents or your guardian die along there, what happens? why should we be having our colleagues dropping out of Inchino Lane because the people who are supposed to sponsor them or fund them to further the education, they have died and they are no more and they have nowhere to run to. We're trying to encourage them, okay guys, what is the best way to making sure that we cushion this? Let's form cooperative, let's knock on every door that we can to make sure that one day there's a door that will open. We're not going to stop, even if our faces are not familiar, but we won't stop. We won't lose anything by trying, but we'll lose everything by not trying. Thank you so much.
Still with you, Kanyakula, do you think government is doing enough in sensitizing people? Because we've just heard pronouncements or announcements say there is this fund that has been allocated to this sector, or there is this amount that has been set aside for youths and women. Do you think there is enough information or sensitization to people so that they know that instead of them sitting idle, there is money somewhere and they need to jump on board and access that money? If government is not doing enough, then who should help government in sensitizing women as well as youths to know that there is money somewhere and this money should not continue sitting idle? They need to access it so that they better their lives.
Thank you so much. I think it's a definite no. Government is not doing enough when it comes to sensitization. Us who are along the line of rail might have the information on our fingertips, know what is happening, but our colleagues in Shangom and these other Vubwi and these other areas, they're not really aware of the money that has been set aside and put aside for them. I think government on that aspect, they need to do more. And on answering part of your question, I think the onus is on us who've got the information. I think also members of parliament, this is also their duty and their job, because they sit in parliament. This is where all these pronouncements are made. The onus is on them now to go to their people, the people that voted for them. Their job is not always to come on to go to parliament to drink expensive whiskey and coffee. And at the end of the day, they wait for the graduate and then they go back when there's a month or so to election. They start pleading again and canvassing for votes. I think this is the time it calls for leadership. Our MPs, our councillors, everyone at that level. It's the onus is on both of us to make sure that we sensitize our people in the extreme parts of our country. Tell them, okay, if you gather the youths, the women, you tell them, this is what is happening in Lusaka, this side where you sent us to represent you. There's this that is happening. There's this amount of money that has been allocated for you. And going forward, come up with this model. They need to explain. They need to explain to our colleagues and tell them how to go about and simplifying it as simple as possible and not make all these draconian kind of arrangements and regulations that won't really trickle down to the vulnerable and our colleagues who are unable to read. Because our colleagues who are unable to read and write, if you give them a document, say, no, this is a document, read, and it has modalities, not supposed to acquire these funds. They're not helping, they're not solving the situation. But what's important is that these empowerment funds, what government needs to do is that they need to come up with pamphlets or leaflets that are going to be translated in all the major languages that we have. At least if somebody can't read or understand English, I'm sure they'll be familiar to read in Kaonde, they'll be familiar to read in Bemba or Nyanja. We need to simplify this, and it should also they also need to involve the headmen and the chiefs of the various chiefdoms. These are the people, these are the leaders, the community leaders, where most of our people from rural areas hail from. They get information from. So if the chiefs, the headmen, and all the traditional leaders will be can be brought on board to make sure that these funds to be actualized, all these people, all these stakeholders need to come on board. And also, I also emphasize on the civil society organizations. Ours is not always to rise and say, no, there is this or there is that, you don't agree on this. When there's also such an opportunity, it also calls for this civil society organization, us who belong to civil society organization, to go to the people and tell them there is this that has come. Yes, we might not agree with ABCD or ABCD, we might not agree with the opposition, we might not agree with the ruling party, but there's this opportunity that has presented itself. How are we going to make sure that we also encourage our people? We shouldn't only be gathering the young people when we want them to go demonstrate or riot in the road. It's not right.
Thank you so much, Kanyakula. Mputa, in his submission, Kanyakula talked about government not doing enough to sensitize people. When there are funds somewhere, they need to do more by sensitizing people. And also the onus is on civil society organizations to take it upon themselves and also inform those people that may not know, and especially the vulnerable. Do you think government is doing it deliberate, so that in the end, young people and the vulnerable will be blamed to say, we told you that there is money. It's not up to us to sensitize you, but there are civil society organizations who are supposed to take it up. Is it a deliberate policy by government not to be clear whenever there are these empowerment funds?
So before I answer, let me react to a few things that my colleague said here. So it is not that every time I organize or we organize young people to go and access certain funds, we don't know the procedure. When I took those young people, there was a registration that was going on, and I wanted them.
And you followed the procedure?
Yes, and I wanted them to register as well, but they were denied registration or to be put on that list saying they are not familiar faces. So I don't know what procedure needed to be followed there. I understand all the procedures of how young people should access funds and how we form. Actually, you only need the minimum of 10 people in a cooperative for you to go and access funds. If you are only 10, you form a cooperative, you go and access funds, provided you have a business proposal. I understand all those procedures. And in that regard, I have not failed the young people in my community. I have organized young people, but until date, from 2015 until date, I have not seen any young person that I organized and submitted.
Because they are not familiar faces?
I think so. I think so, because I have received, we have received such statements for a long time, and some of them they'll just get your proposal and tell you we'll call you. Until now, we are still waiting. Maybe our proposals are not good, but to my knowledge, some of the proposals we even consulted business people that are good at writing proposals. Now, coming to your question. Is the government, is it deliberate that the government is just making pronouncements and then not telling the young people? It could be. Because if you, Mr. Moderator, you have funds that you need to give your son, and you don't tell your son, anytime, Sonny, anything you need, just come tell me, and you have no, you just have that money, and your son doesn't know that you have that money and you can give it to him, you will not come to ask. So how many young people know about this youth empowerment fund? What modalities has the government under the Ministry of Youth in order to sensitize young people about these funds? It is not just about telling them, no, we have this fund. We have young people that do not know how to write a business proposal, because that is a minimum qualification, but they know how to run a business. What has the government done, and the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Youth, the Ministry of Youth, in order to help young people so that they can write proposals that will be powerful enough? What skills? Yes, civil CSOs also need to come in and caution and sensitize young people, provide modalities on how they can write proposals and how to access these funds. It is very important, but that is the responsibility of the government. 90% is the responsibility of the government.
Thank you.
If we don't have civil servants?
Thank you so much, Mputa. Your 3 minutes up. Let's go to social protection. 4.8 billion has been allocated, of which 2.3 billion kwacha is for social cash transfer, which is more than 1.0 billion kwacha that was allocated in 2020 budget. Kanyakula, are we not turning the Zambian people into beggars by allocating more to social cash transfer instead of telling them to be innovative and work hard?
Okay, thank you so much, moderator. I think this goes both ways. I think it's also important to give credit where it's due, because the cost of living has gone up in our country, and we can't continue giving our mothers, the elderly, maybe for instance, this is a practical example. We cannot continue giving them 100 kwacha to cater for their daily needs when the cost of living has gone high. So it's just imperative and important that as the cost of living is going high, even the amount of money that is being received as a social cash transfer should also increase. And I think we really need to distinguish the social cash transfer and also the empowerment, because there's that misinterpretation that the social cash transfer is the same as empowerment. The social cash transfer is entirely it's meant for the vulnerable, and also we need to understand that I think maybe the challenge that is there when it comes to social cash transfer is that we mostly concentrate on the people from the outskirts of the rural areas of our country. We must concentrate on that, forgetting that we have families that are vulnerable, even here in urban areas. Here in Lusaka, Kitwe, and all these urban areas, we also have people who are vulnerable. I think in that regard, would also urge the ministry responsible for disbursing social cash transfer to also consider those our colleagues who are in urban areas, but they are vulnerable. So it's also important that we do that. And increasing the allocation doesn't mean we're turning our people into beggars, but it means we're trying to cushion and also alleviate the poverty datum line, and also to make sure that they are also able to afford 3 meals in a day. So I think it's a very commendable move. I would actually even appreciate if it can even be increased more, because of more of our colleagues and our women and our mothers who are vulnerable, and they badly need this money. So it's a very commendable move, and it's a step in the right direction. And I would also say that the next government, in the next budget, should even be increased more.
Can even be increased more. Mputa, the same question, are we not turning Zambians into beggars so that they know that, okay, come month end, there is social cash transfer? And we've been told that this social cash transfer goes to the vulnerable people. In his submission, the minister also talked about youths and women being vulnerable. And in this case, who is vulnerable?
For me, I feel, yes, it should be even increased, as my comrade alluded to, but the criteria of choosing who should benefit should be more important. So it is not about giving, young people are still energetic, youths are still energetic. They can find a way of finding that 110 that will be given every month in a more different manner. But looking at older people, women, those are most vulnerable group. So yes, it is a very commendable allocation, and it should be increased as we move forward. It should not just be increased when we see that the elections are near. Even next year, even the other year, when we'll be done and dusted up with the election, I pray that the Ministry of Finance will also consider increasing even more in that regard. In terms of, and the other thing that we should caution is that certain incidences that have happened in the social cash transfer sector, where certain monies go missing, should not repeat itself this time around. All the money that has been allocated should go to people, and the specific people that it is targeted. And I'm always very, very interested in how we choose people that will benefit from this social cash transfer, and that will be very important. So we are not turning our citizens into beggars. There are certain people that are vulnerable that need these monies, most especially the old. Thank you.
Kanyakula, let's talk about debt management. The minister, when he was presenting the 2021 proposed national budget, he said government is committed in restoring public debt sustainability and has embarked on an initiative to achieve this, and these include cancellation, postponement, rescoping of projects. Further contraction of new commercial external debt has been stopped. With the project that the minister talked about of spending 6.2 billion on roads and 567.3 million kwacha on Simon Mwansaka Pwepo and Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, don't you think there is a contradiction? If there is no contradiction, then what is it that government is committed to ensuring that they manage our debt?
Thank you so much. government, but in my own capacity.
As a concerned citizen?
Yes, as a concerned citizen and as a student leader. I think debt restructuring and the repayment of debt is something that should concern and worry every well-meaning for Zambia, because outside because the challenge that has been there is that the issue of debt has been what can I say? It's been associated with political parties and all that. But I think what you need to realize that the issue of debt is of national concern, and everyone should be interested on how we're going to manage our debt, and not really trying to speak ill about it, but trying to come up with solutions that are going to work and make sure that we structure our debt and we don't default on our debt. And on cancelling certain projects that are not necessary, I think that's a step in the right direction. But when it comes to the airports, the two airports that you mentioned, I think these are already almost at 72% completion. It's not right that they stop the expansion of the airport, because we believe that it's through these infrastructure development, like the airports, the roads, and all that, that we're going to generate revenue that we need as a country, and raise resources that are going to help in mitigating and in cushioning the debt that the country has acquired and the debt that we're in. So I think it's important that we put politics aside and we come up with solutions, regardless of political party that you belong to, whether you belong to a political party or you don't. You're a neutral citizen, you're a civic leader, you're a student leader, whichever organization or umbrella that you come from. It's important that we come up with solutions that are going to help and mitigate, and come up with a workable plan and make sure that we restructure our debt. And I think I'd also call upon the Minister of Finance to call an economical endeavor. I think we've got the right brains in this country that can also manage to come up with solutions and modalities that can work in structuring our debt. I think it's important that we had that endeavor as soon as yesterday, and assemble the best brains that we have in our country and see how best we can cushion the debt that we have accumulated as a country, so that we don't even default as we go into 2021, because we know that we're supposed to start servicing the Eurobond by 2022. So it's important that we come up with the right brains and the right minds and the great minds, and I believe that we have the great minds and the best minds in our country to come up with the solutions that are workable for us.
Mputa, still on the same question. Government is committed in restoring public debt sustainability, and it has embarked on these initiatives that I've mentioned, the 4 of them: the cancellation, the postponement, the rescoping of projects, and further contraction of new commercial external debt has been stopped. Do you think government is committed and is going to live by what they've proposed?
Even the 2018 budget, those of you who still remember, we had a commitment of saying we are going to manage the debt. But as at now, is the debt reduced or it has increased? So if I'm going to say I'm going to stop this thing, and that behavior, or I say I'm going to stop this behavior, and still that behavior continues to increase, then there's much to be desired. Yes, that is on paper, but we are yet to see if really the government, what they have said they are going to do, because pronouncements are sweet to utter when you want certain people to hear what you want them to need, you want them to hear, but doing is the most difficult part. So if the government is saying they are going to restructure the debt so that maybe we mitigate and reduce the debt levels, let's see what will come out after 2021. If really the budget is going to drop, then we'll see that what they have said in the budget is something that they have done. But we have seen even the 2019 budget, the 2020 budget, those are the speeches that were given saying the budget will reduce it, but it keeps growing as at September. So for me, the only thing I can say is let's wait. They have said they are committed, and we'll see their commitment in due course. Because at some point, you know, when you are told stop doing this and you don't want to stop, you keep doing it, and then now things start going bad. At some point, certain people will refuse to come on board and help. But that should not be the case, because this debt that we have, it is affecting everyone. We all owe. Yes, the government borrowed, but it borrowed on our behalf. And it is up to us now to solve this debt, more especially the young people. We should get consent, because in the next 10 years, in the next 5 years, those that are in leadership will be on farms, sleeping and enjoying their retirement. And it will be to us, me, my colleague here, you, Mr. Moderator, who needs to come up with ideas so that we can pay back the debt. So this is our fight. Yes, it is someone else, or maybe it is a certain group of people that brought it on us. But as at now, we are not saying it is the government that owes, it is a certain political party that owes. No, it is the government that owes, and the government is owned by people. And as a people, we must take part into making sure that we hold the government accountable on what those commitments that they have made in this budget, saying they will reduce the borrowing and they will reduce the debt even further. So if it keeps increasing, then we have to come up with solutions.
What makes you still have confidence and the proposal that you've given to the Minister of Finance to call for an economic in-depth? Because people will tell you in this country that they have been advising government not to continue borrowing, but government has continued to borrow. What makes you feel as if government this time around can listen and stop the borrowing?
The onus is on the young people of this country. If we speak as one voice and as a united front, and as a united people and as a united youth, even the government will listen to us when we speak. So the onus is on us to organize ourselves and speak with one voice that we need an economic endeavor and see how we're going to restructure our debt. The Minister of Finance need to call for one. That's my submission.
Thank you so much, Mputa. The Minister of Finance needs to call for one. I saw you agreeing when I said people have been advising government not to continue borrowing, but government has gone ahead to borrow in just in seconds.
Is called, we are not rest assured that those resolutions will be adopted, but I believe that is the right direction for us to go, because a lot of people out there. But we need to give this, you cannot solve a problem where you do not have the much needed information. If you look at the World Bank report that they have done on the Zambian debt, they will tell, the World Bank is saying the government is not disclosing the full amount on how much the debt is owned. So how they all come with a perception of what the government has told us we owe and solve that particular debt, but there is another debt. So someone that cries for help and someone that needs for help need to come out with the whole truth out there, so that when you are solving it for once and for all.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for making an appearance on Blunt Talk, the fearless debate. Selim Kanyakula, thank you so much for making an appearance. Hope to see you soon. Mputa Ngalande, thank you so much for making an appearance and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, for the invitation.
This has been Blunt Talk, Monday's edition. Join us again next week, same time, same place. My name is Kelvin Tabula, Chief Folk. Good night.
This is Zambia, the home of copper.